Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suttress here, really excited about today's guest, Tim Matheson, the wonderful actor, director. You know his work from Animal House and Fletch and 1941. More recent years, an excellent turn on The West Wing as the vice president, and even just a couple of years ago, got to play Ronald Reagan in the Nat Geo movie Killing Reagan. Incredible career that reaches back to Hanna-Barbera and its golden age in the 1960s. We talk about that. But before we get to all that, very funny story about how I was able to book Tim. Our mutual friend Joe Henderson, who is the showrunner of Lucifer on Fox, one of my favorite shows. I've known Joe since our days on the Brian Bendis message board. And Joe came on to promote his new Image comic book, Skyward, and asked, hey, can I do any favors for you? You're helping me promote my comic book. And I noticed that Tim Matheson had been directing episodes of Lucifer. And I'm like, get me Tim Matheson. And he said, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, are you kidding? Tim Matheson, since he's been a kid, this guy's been, involved in some great geek culture programming. He was the original Johnny Quest. He was the original young Sampson. He worked with Hollywood greats, from Henry Fonda and Lucille Ball to Dick Van Dyke, Debbie Reynolds, Bob Hope, Jackie Gleason in his teenage years. And then, of course, an incredible career in Westerns. One of my favorite shows, we briefly talked about it, The Quest, a great show that he did with Kurt Russell, that Encore Western has run occasionally on their channel, but he was also on Bonanza and other great television Westerns. And then, of course, came the success with Animal House, and a whole new turn for him doing comedy. But his comedy beginnings really started sketch comedy with the original group of the Groundlings. We talk a bit about that. And we try to hit all the hits. I'm slapping myself because I mentioned Fletch, and I forgot to talk about Fletch in our interview. Really great conversation. And Tim could not be more gracious with his time and his memories on some of his great moments, both acting and directing. And I'm really happy to share it with you today. Great hunk about The West Wing. He was great on Burn Notice. You might remember he had a recurring role on Burn Notice that was a really fun, meaty role. So, great time talking to Tim Matheson. We just recorded it yesterday on today's Word Balloon. It's all brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you very much for your support, League, through Patreon. Things are going great, and it's partially because you're able to help fund Word Balloon and produce it for me, and give me the means to get to conventions and put out some really interesting stuff, and also even repairing the laptop. I mean, it's those kinds of things that you guys help with your subscriptions to Word Balloon. If you'd like to subscribe to Word Balloon, you don't have to. Word Balloon is free. It'll always be free. But if you'd like to help the cause, you can go to patreon.com/wordballoon or wordballoon.com and click on the Patreon ad. Thank you very much for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by InStock Trades at InStockTrades.com. We're talking to Tim about his years at Hanna-Barbera and working on such shows as Johnny Quest and Space Ghost and Young Sampson. Of course, we should mention that there was just a great series that just wrapped up a year or so ago with Jeff Parker and Doc Shaner, Future Quest, which was a great team-up of all the action heroes of Hanna-Barbera, led by Johnny Quest and Bandit and Race and Dr. Quest. 2 volumes of that. And they're available at 42% off each volume at InStockTrades.com. Just $9.85 for Future Quest. What a great series. You can also get things like the Coming Action Comics 1000, 80 Years of Superman, a great volume that has been put out. This collection is 384 pages and features some of the best work from all the Superman creators, going right back to the beginning with Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, and Action Comics #1, 80 Years of Superman, the deluxe edition, 50% off at InStockTrades.com, just $14.99. You can also get a great story from John Byrne, actually several great stories, Superman the Exile and Other Stories Omnibus, featuring great work from Jerry Ordway, Dan Jurgens, Roger Stern, Kerry Gamble. Tremendous stuff, man. And, of course, guys like Dan Jurgens still doing wonderful work on Superman as he's wrapping up his run and handing things over to Brian Bendis. But this is a great collection. It's 50% off for this omnibus, just $62.50. You can also get things like Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, Volume 2, That's Most Wanted, Chip Zdarsky, Adam Kubert. What a great series this has been and continues to be. It's 42% off, $10.43. You can get things like The Avengers Omnibus Volume 3 with a wonderful Sal Buscema cover and great art inside. Roy Thomas doing the writing. This is a hell of a run. 760 pages, including the debut of Red Wolf, the important Native American character, when he made his first debut. 760 pages, 42% off, just $58 at In-Stock Trades. Or you can go a little bit more modern and get things like Family Trade Paperback Volume 1. Justin Jordan doing the writing and Morgan Beam doing the interior art. It collects the first arc, and it's 42% off, $9.85. All waiting for you at InStockTrades.com. Check it out. More great books. We'll talk about those at the back of the show, but do yourself a favor and check it out now, InStockTrades.com. All right, without further ado, let's talk to Tim Matheson about his incredible career, and we're going way back to his teenage years. He started as a child, but I want to get right to the Hanna-Barbera years as we start things off. But a great talk that I just did yesterday. Tim Matheson on today's Word Balloon. Tim Matheson, really excited to have you on Word Balloon. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Oh, John, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to this.
Now, I want to go way back, and you'll forgive me, but I was so thrilled to discover that you're the original Johnny Quest.
Yes. It was, it was one of those weird things. I was a kid actor. I started when I was 12, and all of a sudden at 15, and you get all these auditions, and I went over to Hanna-Barbera and did a voice audition for this thing one day. Never heard anything. Months go by, and you just sort of forget. I said, it didn't work out. And then I got a call that said, hey, you're starting to do this series for Hanna-Barbera. Go in and record. And it was like, oh, my God. And it's like, what happened? So I was 15, and then I do remember I must have turned 16 during the time we did Johnny Quest, because I think we did 22, 24 episodes, and I would drive myself. So I first got my car. Yeah, so I could drive there, and but
nice after school job, man.
Yeah, I gave up my paper route, But what was great about it was I had to go for at least 3 hours plus the recording session, because I had to go to school, and you had, as a student, as a kid, you had a teacher there, and you had to go do your homework there or your school, work there. Mm-hmm. And they vetted you and made sure you did it. And then I would take it back to my regular school and show them what I did. And I would go watch them do the Flintstones and the Jetsons and Rough and Ready, or all the different shows they did at that time.
Insane.
Oh my God. And some of the best actors in the world did voices. They're just phenomenal. Mel Blanc, Dawes Butler, June Foray, and Don Messick, and these guys, and they had been, like radio actors. Yes. and were just fabulous, fabulous actors. And I learned a lot from them.
That's really fantastic. And which came first, Johnny Quest or Space Ghost? Because I know you were Jace on Space Ghost, one of his sidekicks.
Johnny Quest came first, and then we did that series. Then it didn't get picked up, and then I did, I believe, Space Ghost, and then I did Young Sampson with Mel Blanc. I did, and I did like a bunch of different things for Hanna-Barbera. And Joe Barbera was amazing, because he was the director, supervised the writers, and he ran the sort of creative side of it. And Bill Hanna was like the back room guy. He just, he stayed away. He was around a little bit, but not, he was taking care of the other kind of the business. But Joe actually allowed me to pitch ideas for the card. I think it was for Young Sampson or Sinbad Jr.
Yeah.
I wrote a script. He bought a couple of my ideas, and he gave me a script to write, and helped me, taught me how to do that. And it was, he was a mentor and a fascinating guy. I was just a kid.
That's really amazing. And I have seen a really great archive of American television, Joe Barbera interview, pretty late in his life, but what a character. I mean, you could tell even then, really, a showman and a great promoter of his work, but unbelievable stories. And I know he goes back to the Fleischer, Popeye years and stuff, and the black and white animation years.
Yeah, I'm sure. And Tom and Jerry, and, it was just, what a great storied background he had, and what a good partner. that Bill Hanna was to him and he to Bill, because they just complemented each other and they didn't try and duplicate. There was no ego involved, and Bill just let him go and took care of the backstage stuff, and Joe was, a showman.
Were you guys doing it all and women all together, or were you doing your parts separately when you would record the voice tracks?
It was old school. We'd all
that's great.
There was script in hand or up on like a music stand, and you had your script there, and we would rehearse it once, seated at a table, read it through, and then we'd get up and do it, and it was very intimidating to be with these guys and ladies, because Mel Brooks or Daz Butler or Don Messick, they could play two characters in the same scene talking to each other. I could barely get my own words out, just talking like a real kid, It was and intimidating because they just get up and do it, And I was sort of a studious method type actor, and this is just the opposite of that, except it's got to be real, And these guys could do that, and because they came out of radio, and they could just manufacture a real live performance, and it took me a little bit of time to figure out how to do that and not force it, not be pushed, not be fake, and yet be big enough. Because the thing about cartoons, if you're not bigger than life, it sounds flat,
Yeah.
So there's a real fine line you walk to try and get it in the zone, and it took me a while to figure that out. But it was it was a great school, great lessons.
I know in more recent years you got to work with, and I appreciate this moment talking about your animation stuff, but you got to work with Andrea Romano, and I've gotten to interview her. Am I correct? On like Batman and maybe Justice League, things like that?
Because she runs the Warner Brothers thing, and it's great. It's so much fun every time you get to do those things, and I don't get to do it enough as much as I'd like, because it's so much fun. And the people you work with, the guy's doing the dog, the guy's doing the snake, the guy, and they're making, and they can leap back and forth in these voices, and I don't know how they remember the exact voice, the exact accent. It's such a skill and amazing talent. They're just awesome.
That's amazing. I think the first thing I saw of yours was, again, and you got to work with some Hollywood legends, Henry Fonda and Lucille Ball, Yours, Mine, and Ours. And for the listeners who don't know the movie, kind of a pre-Brady Bunch idea of this gigantic, two widowers, a widow and a widower, that get together and they both have large families, and all of a sudden it's like 12 kids or something like that, right?
17, I believe.
17, jeez.
I think it was, yeah, and the Beardsley family up in Carmel, I think, or up in Monterey.
Is that a true story?
Oh yeah, it's a true story.
I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah, the Brady Bunch ripped it off. I mean, I think we did Yours, Mine, and Ours whenever we did it, 67, 68, I guess, and then, or was it then, or 67, I believe. And then the Brady Bunch came out the next year on TV, and they shrunk the family down so you could be more affordable. But it was a good show. And I would never knock the Brady Bunch, because I did a Very Brady sequel, which was kind of fun.
Absolutely you did, and you were hilarious in that, man. Carol's first husband.
So wacky, so crazy.
The straight man to that strange family, and that was fantastic. Well, of course, the scene when you're eating mushrooms and you're tripping out watching, thinking about the Bradys.
Oh my God, it was just one of the funnest, silliest jobs I ever had. But yeah, working with Hank and Lucy, I mean, Henry Fonda was the coolest, just chill guy. Never left the set. He always sat on the set. And he did like needlepoint or needlework, something that the guys in Hollywood were doing at the time. Rosie Greer and Henry and they were just something, I guess. So he didn't smoke. I think he had just quit smoking. So he needed something to do with his hands. So he did this. Stayed on the set the whole time. Lucy, it was her studio, it was her script, it was her company, and she was a one of the only women in Hollywood to run an enterprise, a company like Desilu, and this movie, and so she was wound pretty tight. She was very exacting in her work habits and her comedy, and didn't have a lot of patience. Let's say sometimes. And Henry was always just like, "Okay, Lucy, that's all right, Lucy. We'll do it. Don't worry. We're gonna." He was very calming, And it was like the first real movie star. I mean, I'd worked with Dick Van Dyke and Debbie Reynolds the year before. So I'd seen up close movie stardom, but here's Henry, who's been around since water, and he gets up on this one speech, and I kept thinking, like, what do you do with this speech? If I was him and I had to get up and do this speech to my kids as I'm leaving the house, I couldn't figure out what he was going to do. And he just got up, and it was so simple and so honest, and he was just Henry Fonda, and it was like, oh my God, that's a movie star. He's just so wonderful. And it made it seem so simple. And it was a real lesson for me. He was very, very professional, always on time, always knew his material, always prepared well. So he would just get up and deliver, and it was like, wow, okay, there's lesson number one. Do your homework,
That's awesome, man. Well, and I'm looking up, and I know I've seen, I thought it was How to Commit Marriage, but that's the movie you did with Bob Hope and Jackie Gleason and Jane Wyman.
That's a stinker.
Yeah. Well, seriously, man, you know how it was back in weeknight, late night TV. These things would pop up and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I knew when I got that part. I had been in the Marine Corps right after Years, Mine, and Hours. I went in the Marine Corps Reserves.
Okay.
And I went away to boot camp and combat training, and then I was shipped back to L.A. for my reserve duty, and then I got into the Hope Gleason movie. And when I saw I got the original script, and it was like, great, it's great. And then I get this rewrite that's got a golf game between Gleason and Hope and a chimpanzee.
Oh, fantastic.
That was bad.
Yeah. I'm interested. You worked with all these interesting 60s directors, Norman Panama, and granted it wasn't that great of a movie, but he's, I know he's a Hope guy and was certainly involved with a lot of Hope films and everything.
Yeah, for me, I'll tell you, the great thing I had going for me when I was a kid was I got exposed to all these people, Hope and Gleason and Debbie Reynolds and Van Dyke and Lucy and Henry Fonda, Van Johnson.
Yes.
Most of them come from vaudeville, so there was a work ethic and a toughness about them. And doing a scene with Lucy with 12 kids making breakfast, and Lucy stopped, toast popping up, the prop guy pushing the button, toast shoots up in the air, Lucy grabs it. And it was one of those things, and Lucy just looked around at everybody and just said, always rehearse with your props. And it was like a voice from God giving you an acting lesson. And it was, the comedy doesn't just happen by accident. This is something that you need to craft and hone, and you got to know where the jokes are and where the physical gag is and how to make it happen and how to do it 40 times, because that's how many times you do it in a scene. And so you don't hurt yourself. So, and then a dream thing was working with Jackie Gleason, who was I was a huge Gleason fan. He was doing the show down in Miami Beach at the time. Yeah. Honeymoons, of course, Yes. But I just loved working with him. And my fondest memory was one day I'm in a scene with Jackie, and he played my father and I was his son. And there was a young actress, my girlfriend, who was opposite me, and she'd never done anything. And then this band was a bunch of musicians who'd never been in acted it before. And so there's all of us in a scene, and Jackie looked at me quietly and he said, "Kid, we're the only ones here who know what we're doing. Let's get this thing done." I was like, "Yeah, Jackie, okay, you got it." And it was like, what an honor. I mean, it was like, but what a champ he was. I mean, gave everyone on the crew a watch when the show was finished. Oh, wow. Every member of the crew and cast, he gave a watch, probably inscribed. Mine was inscribed to Tim from Jackie. I mean, what a class act, I mean, it was just the way you did it the right way, and that was the way things were done.
That's fantastic, man. And yeah, Divorced American Style was the Van Dyke and Debbie movie.
Yes, yeah.
Very cool. 67. Norman Lear?
Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin, yeah.
Wow. Again, that's the thing, man. I mean, on the surface, we look at your roles and the things you've been involved with, and immediately people think of Animal House, and we'll certainly get to Animal House. But that's the thing. It was really cool to see and look at the IMDb and remember. And like I said, I do remember as a kid watching Yours, Mine, and Ours, and probably Divorced American Style, too. And, obviously you had maybe less of a prominent role because it really was more about Van Dyke and Debbie and everything. But
yeah, we didn't have much to do. But side note, trivia:
please.
The guy Gary Getzman who played my brother in both Divorce American Style and the next year and Yours, Mine, and Ours is Tom Hanks's partner, producing partner, and has been Tom's partner for 20 years.
Yeah.
And is a huge Hollywood, executive and wonderful guy. Still a good friend of mine, and I see him all the time. And my oldest friend in the entertainment business, and a great guy. But he hasn't changed. He was always together and the coolest guy in the group then, and he still is, and so it's very funny.
Wow. And, beyond the movies that he made with Hanks, he's doing those CNN series, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, obviously, too.
Yeah, they're just doing, I think, 1968. They're doing a special 4-hour on the year 1968, and they asked me to participate and talk about, no, I'm sorry, not 68, must be, well, it must be, oh no, it's the 2000s. I'm in the 2000s.
Oh, okay.
They are doing the 68, but I did the 2000s because they wanted to talk to me about the West Wing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so it's the 2000s. Yeah, I'm getting them mixed up, but it was so much fun to see this other arm of the Playtone, Tom and Gary's company, and how Gary expands that and keeps it moving out. Tom does what he does in acting, and he's also a good partner to Gary and producer and partner, and
sure.
And they do these so many things, Mamma Mia.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, it's just they don't stop.
No, that's great. And no, those series are fantastic because, and especially now in this post-internet world where every moment is being, recorded, including this conversation. But it seems like there are patches of the 20th century that, and, I was born in 64. So, it just seems like younger people, they don't get the full story of the 20th century the way, and again, because there's, I think, some chunks missing. Not everything was filmed and taped. And I think these shows are important to kind of remind the younger generation about how interesting these decades were and the, obviously significant moments of each of these decades.
Well, I think it's true because, you see these blurbs every now and then about, gee, people don't know what Watergate was. They don't know what this was. They don't know, what was Vietnam, and a variety of things. And it's, I played Reagan last year and killed Reagan, and a lot of young people don't know who and what Ronald Reagan was or did. And, not being a political affiliate of, his party, I still knew what he was and did what he did. And, and I love doing research anyway. So, I mean, whether you subscribe to those beliefs or not, I think it's incumbent upon us as citizens and as just people to figure out what happened and incorporate that knowledge into what we think should happen today.
Absolutely. And try and avoid the mistakes of the past. Absolutely, man. And again, Killing Reagan, another great project that you did with Cynthia Nixon as Nancy. Tremendous Nat Geo production. Absolutely, man. Well done.
Yeah, it was a great challenge.
So Animal House, we got to obviously talk about Animal House. Eric Stratton, damn glad to meet you.
Yeah, damn glad to meet you.
Again, surrounded by incredibly talented people in front of the camera and, of course, behind the camera. What a great production.
Well, yeah. And, it was my first comedy. I had been doing, there was these different sort of eras of my career. There was the kid acting thing where I was like the third kid through the door. I was never quite the lead of a show or anything, and then my cartoon period. And then I went over to Universal and did The Virginian for a year. Then I did Bonanza for a year. And then I did the Quest for a year. There was a whole Western period that I did. And then when I came out of that, I killed all three shows. So,
now that's not fair because especially The Quest, man, that was you and Kurt Russell when you guys were babies. I watched that show, and forgive me, I forgot you were on Bonanza because I was a Bonanza watcher.
You probably didn't watch The Quest for long because it was up against Charlie's Angels, and I bet you just said, "Yeah, bang bang, Cowboys, Cowboys." Wait a minute, there's Farrah. Okay,
that's a good point.
I get that. That's why we only lasted about 14 episodes.
Yeah, man, but it was great.
Coming out of that, I played these straight kind of boy next door parts, and I was like, oh God, they were horrifying. I just was so sick of it. So I started taking improv classes and learning how to do improv with the Groundlings here in Los Angeles, and fortunately landed the job to get into Animal House, which the best script I'd ever read. I mean, the best comedy, craziest, wildest thing. I'd seen anything like that before, so I just had to be in it, and I just was going to die trying, And fortunately, I got the part, and it just was one of those magic things where the wonderful cast, John Landis did a great job casting, and he wanted real actors around Belushi. He didn't want Chevy and Danny Aykroyd and and Harold Ramis. God bless him. He didn't want the Saturday Night Live version of this movie. He wanted it to be more based in reality. And Elmer Bernstein wrote the score, so it was like, it was a very real kind of movie, and shot in a very naturalistic manner. It wasn't overlit like most comedies. Mm-hmm. So Landis had a real vision for that, and it just ultimately paid off because it just resonated with the audience, and still does. I mean, It's sort of a primer for every freshman who goes to college to watch this movie and see what they've got in store for them.
Comedy 101, no question. And also the great, I think the way that Landis captured what Doug Kenny and those guys did with that original Lampoon magazine yearbook. Yeah, you guys were this 50s yearbook come to life, and especially you, man. I mean, you're that prom king, looking, guy that absolutely big man on campus and stuff, and awesome that you look great in the yearbook picture, but meanwhile, you're flushing underwear down the toilet, and the toilets are exploding, the underwear's in the trees. John Vernon, right? Dean
Vernon?
Am I right?
Oh.
Dean Vernon, yeah. John Vernon is Dean Wormer, absolutely, yeah.
And for me, it was like Otter, Eric Stratton, the character I played, should have been an Omega.
Yes.
He should have been in the other one. But you know what? To me, the core principle of this movie was it was about people who were generous and loving and accepting, and people who were elitists, exclusive assholes. Yes. And that was what fraternities were, And this was a fraternity that had to take anybody in. Anybody who came and wanted to get in, you're in, So it was that kind of thing. And it was really a lot about, rich, the haves and the have-nots and all that. And so there was a very deep undercurrent underneath it, with like all Lampoon stuff. It was satire and it was comedy, but there was strength and truth underneath it all, always.
And strong actors, like you said, man, yourself and, young Kevin Bacon and Tom Hulce before Amadeus and, Peter Riegert. I'm such a fan of everything he does since then. Local Boy, and certainly his turn on The Sopranos and things like that. And I mean, and Bruce McGill. I mean, Bruce McGill. I mean, Jesus, you look at it, it's like, oh, that is Bruce McGill. Holy shit. I mean, it's, and again, you guys were so funny and truly, the careers that you've all had have been wonderful careers.
Yeah. We were, they were all so nice, and Belushi was always great too. There was none of that New York, LA snobbery. He was very gracious, especially to me who had never done a comedy before, and very supportive and helpful. And I never forgot it, and would go visit him in New York and got to be very close to him. Then I did 1941 with him. And
yes.
By then I think his career had taken its toll, because he was a Blues Brothers and the movie had come out, and he had record hits and movie hits, and,
right.
And SNL, and it just was too much. Everybody wanted to party with him, and I think, it just caught up with him, and ultimately it took his life.
Yeah, true tragedy. Absolutely, man. He's a Chicago guy, so certainly we feel it even more here in Chicago and stuff. I'm glad you mentioned 1941, because I'm one of the lovers of 1941. I saw it in the theater. I mean, and I'll even say, hey, it doesn't come together, but the individual parts of the movie, you and Nancy Allen, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, because your story was hilarious. Every story individually really was funny. It has great moments. Eddie Deason is on the Ferris wheel with the mayor from Jaws. I forget that character actor's name. I mean, that's the thing. Go ahead.
Hamilton.
Murray Hamilton, yes. And, of course, in Anatomy of a Murder. I'm a big fan of that.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So many great actors. Robert Stack is hilarious.
Oh, my God.
And just being the straight man and the general that's just like, my God, what's happening all around us? But
when I got offered that part, they said, okay, here's this, and here's the billing, alphabetical. You will fall between Christopher Lee and Toshiro Mifune. I said, done.
Yeah.
I'm in. Thank you very much. And I tagged around and followed Toshiro around for weeks just to watch him. You know, he didn't speak any English hardly, but he was like, he's one of the greatest actors who's ever lived, the greatest Japanese actor certainly, and
absolutely.
Just what an amazing career with working with Kurosawa so many times, and so wonderful, and God, so I, again was in the right place at the right time. I just hung out and watched these guys.
Unbelievable movie. Slim Pickens hilarious in that movie.
Slim Pickens.
That's why, man, truly, because I remember everyone, what a terrible movie and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, man, I was a teenager, I was laughing.
Warren Oates, Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke.
I didn't know Mickey Rourke's in it. What's he doing in the movie?
He was one of the Tank Squad guys. He's got 3 lines, Mickey Rourke, God bless him, couldn't have been nicer and more gracious and sweet to me, and I'd run into him on this, before he hit big, and it was like, hi, Tim, hey, remember me? I was in 1940. Yeah, Mickey, great, good. Once he became Mickey Rourke, I remember going up to him one time and said, Mickey, hi, it's Tim Matheson. He goes, what, who, what? But it was a tough time in his life too, so we'll give him that one. But
all right, man. I actually worked in sports radio for a long time, and I had him on when he was doing his boxing career.
Oh my God!
Yeah, which was pretty crazy, and we had to literally keep our hand on the delay because he dropped F-bombs every other sentence, and we got through the interview. It was okay, but yeah, one of my favorite sports radio interviews, absolutely.
I'll bet. No, he's a great actor and a wonderful character, and I'd love to see him again sometime and catch up.
Now, you mentioned helped found the Groundlings, and I just heard Lorraine Newman on Chris Hardwick's podcast, and she mentioned that you were part of that group, and that was like, oh my God, that's awesome, good timing. I got to ask him about founding the Groundlings, and as I understand it, another guy in the group, Jack Sue, for Barney Miller.
Yeah, I think yes, Jack was there. I mean, I was there only for like 6 months, and founding is probably a stretch. I mean, I was in the original group that Gary Austin and Tom Maxwell and a bunch of these, Archie Hahn and Liberty Williams and a bunch of the real Groundlings were. I jumped in and I was there probably for 6 months, and then I started working and got hauled away out of town. So that's when I left. But I was there the day we chose the name, the Groundlings. I think we went up to Big Bear for a weekend of theater games and skiing and sledding or whatever, and probably had a little something to drink too. But it was a great group, and it allowed me to have a structure and a framework to improv, which I thought was you just get up there and try and be funny. But it's a very meticulous craft, and the people who are good at it make it look like it's just happening automatically, and that's great. But it's a very, very, structured, organized kind of theater game that you play with all your partners there. And it really taught me a lot, and it opened up a whole new career for me, which I wasn't even aware of how to do that.
Well, and that's the great thing. I'm really glad that you've been getting more comedic opportunities since Animal House, and you're learning at Groundlings and everything. Tell me also about. I read this on your Wikipedia page, and I wasn't sure. Although it seems like you've always been associated with National Lampoon. For a time, did you own the magazine?
Yes. I led a hostile takeover of the Lampoon. It had fallen on hard times. They were bleeding money. And I put together a consortium of people who invested money, and we purchased stock, and we approached Matty Simmons, and bought him out, and then it was during the Michael Milken times where there LBOs and people were raising money, and
junk bonds was the phrase back then. Am I correct?
Exactly. exactly, John. And so, but the person we had, and so we did get, we wanted to get a staff of writers like they have on SNL. We wanted to get the magazine revitalized and start making movies and TV. But what happened was our investors, the people who were the money people, went over to Marvin Davis, who could make them more in a week than we could make them on our deal, and they dumped us.
Oh.
So it was me and my partner were left trying to patch together a deal. We finally did, but it didn't get us where we wanted to go, and it was one of the saddest times in my life because we couldn't do what we wanted to do with the Lampoon, and ultimately it never happened for the Lampoon. Now they sort of limp along, but it's not what it was when we wanted to turn it back into what was when Doug was there, but
man,
we're not able to.
Understood. No, I really look back at those formative years, and I saw the wonderful documentary that was made about the Lampoon's history and everything, and I mean it's one of those cornerstones of American comedy, and that very fertile period when the Lampoon, SNL, and all these things were starting to happen, and really push comedy forward.
Oh God, yeah, it was such cutting edge stuff, and I mean, Animal House was the first R-rated comedy.
Yes.
And so it was like, can you do that? Can you get the people come and see that? Oh my God! And it was the right place at the right time, and we just wanted to, and Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And Vacation were two of the great ones too. And then Doug on his own went off and wrote Caddyshack, and that was his last movie.
Yeah.
And when he had an accident, and we lost him. So, it was this bright thing that was burning, and then it was just gone. I mean, now we've got Comedy Central, and you've got Will.
Funny or Die.
Funny or Die.
Yeah, Will Ferrell and Adam McKay and Happy Island,
Yeah, you've got so much comedy and Judd Apatow and all that's going on, Adam Sandler came out of SNL and all that,
mm-hmm.
but and bless his heart, Chris Farley.
Sure.
So it was just something that we tried to do and wanted to do and to keep the magazine going, which unfortunately didn't happen.
Understood. Some other things, I'm going to reach back for a 70s movie of yours that I love because I'm a big bowling fan. Dreamer.
Oh, okay.
I see you laughing.
Well, it's the only movie in which a character Jack Warden played bowled himself to death. So it has that distinction. I was a big, what did I know? I said I was a big fan of a movie called A Sporting Life, which Richard Harris starred in.
Absolutely.
Really movie about sports and, it was English and just an indie movie.
Yeah.
And I kept telling the director, that's the kind of movie I think this should be, right? It's going to be edgy like that. And he goes, oh, yeah. Oh, right. Sure. And come on board, and it was, unfortunately, it was not, it was fun. It was a fun little movie. It wasn't quite what I had hoped it would be.
I can appreciate that. And I don't, again,
not the most cinematic thing, except for the Coen brothers. So, I mean,
Well, and Pete Weber as the Apollo Creed of the Dream, if you make the Rocky analogy and everything, and one of the nicest bowlers in the world. He's got to be the bad guy bowler.
Oh, I know. Come on. Oh,
hilarious. Well, let's move on because I want to get you to the president stuff. You're doing some TV directing now, and would you say it's half and half as far as directing as well as acting?
Well, I think what happened to me is that, at various points in your life, you're either busy or not busy as an actor. Mm-hmm. And I produced movies. And so back in, I guess, the mid to late 80s, I produced some movies and I directed an episode of St. Elsewhere and started getting into that. And then I started directing television movies. And it was I always wanted to be the adult a bit. Actors were treated like children. Just, put the outfit on and just wait in your trailer and we'll send some food over and then say the lines and hit the marks and, don't go crazy on us and everything will be fine, And they pay you a lot of money, so it's great. And I just kind of wanted to be involved more in the creative choices that are made, picking the sets and picking the actors and working on the script. So that's when I started doing it. And it's so much fun. And I spent a good 15, 20 years doing it. And still do, and love it greatly, because I like, I discovered early on that when I do, say, a movie or a TV show or something, and I felt, well, wow, I really got that character, and I really was into it, and it was really good. And then I'd go see it, and sometimes it was really good, and then sometimes it was flat or not that good. And times when I wasn't really into the character, that part that much, I'd go and see it, and it would look even better than the movies that I felt good about. And I realized it's the director that's doing all that. They put the camera in the right place. They just tweak it. They cut it. They drop this scene. They switch that around. They play the outtake. They whatever. And so that's when I realized I want to do that for the actors. I want to be that, champion and coach for them. That's what I want to do. I want to make sure the camera's in the right place for them. Tell them to give me one that's slower and more serious. Give me one that's faster and funnier. That way we'll have a choice. We'll have I can, or whatever, but I'm there for the actors to support and help them, and there for the writer to make sure that their story gets told, so it's real fun, and it's a real creative challenge, and it's so much fun. I just love it.
Well, among the shows that recently you've been doing is Lucifer on Fox.
Yes.
And our buddy Joe Henderson, the showrunner on that. And I'm really glad that show found its audience, because that's I don't even know. Are you a comic book at all reader? Were you a comic book reader as a young man, or? Oh,
yeah, I was a DC guy. Superman, Batman guy. So yeah, and I loved it. And I loved the mischievous quality of Lucifer and how much fun it is, and it's a show it's a cop show that doesn't take itself too seriously, and it has some light moments and banter, and she's sexy, it's sexy.
Oh yeah,
and it's and it's very well written, and they have a good time. It's so entertaining to watch.
That's excellent, man. No, and truly it is. It's a very original show, and it takes the cop procedural and really kind of turns it on its ear and gets to have fun. And also you were also part of that whole USA wave of I think really fun shows, and Burn Notice, and you played Larry Sizemore on several episodes, and man, a great character, and clearly a lot of fun. Must have been fun to play, because it was certainly fun to watch.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, what happened was I had been doing stuff like Cold Case and Without a Trace and Criminal Minds and all these heavy dramas and God and murder, and you're constantly as a director saying more blood, stick the dead bodies over there, and it just at some point it got a little depressing.
Sure. And
so I said, I just want to focus on comedy. So I sort of headed over to USA and worked on Psych and their shows, and I love doing Psych. It was crazy. James Roday and Dule Hill, my old friend from The West Wing.
Oh yeah.
And then I go over to Burn Notice, and in the first season I picked up a good script, and that's really key for a director, is you got to get lucky, because if a good script works, it's the writer who wrote it, and that's why it's good. But if you get a bad script and it doesn't work, it's not a good show, it's the director's fault. So that's when you're a guest director on a show, that's what happens to you.
Okay.
So fortunately on Burn Notice, I picked up a good script. So I came back the next year. They wanted me to do another episode, and they had a casting issue. They didn't know who they wanted to play this part of Larry Sizemore, Dead Larry as he was called. And they kept saying, Tim, you got to do this. And I said, listen, it's the first basically big episode I've done for you guys. I'd rather focus on the directing. And they said, no, you should do this. And I finally agreed. And then I, like just the night before I went to the set to do it, it was like, oh boy, I could end 2 careers with this one show. I could end an acting and a directing career on this one network right tomorrow. But fortunately with Jeffrey Donovan and Bruce Campbell, in all the scenes I was in, it was like they're my buddies, and if after a take, I'd look at them and say, "What do you think?" And they say, "Do it again. Let's try this." And they would help direct, and they were both directors and wonderful actors. So it was just a dream come true. And I think I played that character in 5 different episodes, and they blew me up. But and then they brought him back after he was dead because he was in the finale because he was in Jeffrey's dream.
Yep.
So it was the character, Dead Larry. You couldn't kill him, and then I did the pilot for Covert Affairs, and I worked with Joe Henderson on White Collar, and there were so many different things I did and continue to do as a director that are challenging and very rewarding as well.
Well, I want to talk about the West Wing because that was a great character arc. And as I understand, about 20 episodes of The West Wing you did, and as the vice president, the first vice president, John Hoynes.
Yeah, sounds right.
And man, it's interesting because you have in your story. It's, I guess, because it's been over 12 years, we can call spoilers now and talk about it. The sex scandal that brings the character down. It's really interesting to watch it now. I watched it to prepare to talk to you today, and I can't help but think about the reality that we're all living in right now and the level of scandal that we're living in. And truly, you played it well, and you played it quite, dignified of, no, I've got to resign. And, Martin Sheen and John Spencer are trying to convince your character, no, stay. You're a good man. We need you. And it's like, no, it's important for the country and everything. And you wonder where that integrity is now. And unfortunately, it feels fictional now, unfortunately, with the current surroundings that I think we're dealing with.
Yeah,
I don't know if you think about it and think back to what you did with that role and what's going on now.
Oh yeah, there's very little integrity or honor in that White House right now. But I think the country will survive, and we hope. And I think that it's a blip on the screen,
hopefully.
Yeah, and there's tremendous. I mean, it just seems concurrent with this anomaly of a presidency that we now have such a resurgence of attention to the West Wing. It's amazing to me. I mean, it's like video sales or DVD sales are huge, and people come up to me again on the streets. Yeah, oh my God, John Hoynes. Oh my God, we love the West Wing. But what's so funny is like they say you're such a bad guy, and I'm going like, I don't play a bad guy. It's like, an actor never plays a bad guy.
Understood.
But the better the villain, the better the piece. And he certainly was sort of a nemesis to the White House. It was a bit disappointing. I never got to be in their good graces, but it was fun. And, what happened the last year was Tommy Schlamme and Aaron Sorkin saw a parting of the ways with NBC. I think they were trying to save money, and Aaron and Tommy wanted to go off and do other things, or whatever happened, but I got a call from both of them one day. I was sitting at home, and they said, "Hey, Tim, we're going to have you in an episode, but there's good news and bad news." And I said, "What's the bad news?" Well, the bad news is it's the end of the season, and Tommy and Aaron were both leaving the show, and so are you. And I said, "Oh, okay." And they said, "Yeah, you're going to have a sex scandal, and then you're going to resign, and because we need to get John Goodman, I think, in as the
Speaker
of the House." So because you're the vice president, you're gone, then he's the third in line. So we want to have that as the cliffhanger, and we want to leave that as our sort of legacy, and then they can take it from where they want to take it next year. And I thought, okay, great. And I must say that the show, I directed an episode later on. They kept asking me to direct.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think during my tenure there and even after, but I could never fit it in. And the final year, I actually 2 episodes before the end one, or the second to the last episode that was the one I directed, and it was a different show, God bless him, Jimmy Smith and Alan Alda were great. God, Alan Alda is, he's a legend.
Yeah.
He's, a national treasure. But it wasn't the West Wing I knew,
Okay.
And it wasn't the West Wing that I loved, because those first 4 years, I mean, it was magic. It was just magic.
I hear you, man. And no, you had an incredible character arc.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And also, well, that's really the great thing about that show was it really did show you everybody behind the scenes that works in the White House. And really, I think it was very sympathetic to the role in general of a vice president. And that idea that this isn't the part of, he's never part of the team that is put together to put somebody in the White House. It's always, we select you. So like, I think in your case, weren't you from Texas or something like that? And yeah, so we need this state. So we're going to pick this vice president, and then we got to find things for them to do. And even in those scenes with Martin Sheen, when he's trying to get you to get your character to, approve an anti-gun bill in Texas, and you're like, hey man, I'm committing political suicide, and it's this great thing of but that's your job. You're here to serve the president. And those kind of things. And, of course, your character's alcoholism. And you and John Spencer have great scenes dealing with Leo's alcoholism as well. So that's the thing. Really a great, complicated character that at times you really rooted for. And that other times you're like, oh, you asshole. And that's got to be great to play.
It was great. I mean, it was always so exciting to open an Aaron Sorkin script and see what he was cooking up and who you get to have scenes with. I mean, the people, Brad Whitford and Allison Janney and John Spencer, Martin
Sheen, of course.
Thank you. It was astonishing.
Even Matthew Perry in that one episode where he kind of nails you on the sex scandal and stuff. I mean, that's the thing, man. There's some heavyweight acting going on over there. All of you guys just like really playing this incredible material and everything. And as you say, I'm glad to hear that more people still love it and keep talking about it, because it's one of those one-of-a-kind shows that only come around every few years.
Well, it was sort of a Camelot-like White House during years, and it also was that magical place where the right people are in the right job at the right time for the right reasons, doing good for the country. Yep. And, it's not quite that way now, I think, but hopefully someday soon.
Yeah, agreed, man. No, I'm with you. I wanted to know also some things about TV versus film today, but going back, because we briefly mentioned Mel Brooks, To Be or Not to Be, and the remake, the Lubitsch remake and everything. First of all, man, Brooks has guts, because Ernest Lubitsch, I mean, he's a Hollywood master. And that's one of those perfect movies. It's Jack Benny's greatest movie. I mean, so subtle.
Yeah.
And then so to bring it back in the 80s as they did, and yourself and Brooks and now Anne Bancroft, of course. I mean, a great cast, but a tough assignment, man, trying to recapture that magic.
It was tough. I mean, it was great. We all had a ball. I mean, it was great fun working with, especially with Anne Bancroft, who was just a treasure. I mean, one of the sweetest, most natural talents you'd ever want to be around. It just couldn't have been nicer. And Mel's wife, and an Oscar winner, and just and Charlie Durning and Jose Ferrer and Estelle Reiner, Carl's wife, and just this tremendous group of people. And doing a period film. I mean, I got to sleep in a scene with Mel Brooks. I mean, I had a love scene with Mel Brooks, but thinking it was his wife. But it was a great chance to work with such amazing people. The film probably was not completely successful. It was, and it's tough to do a remake of an Ernst Lubitsch movie. I think, this guy had. He was one of the masters of light comedy. So it and it was a period film too, and it's maybe the audience was a little over their heads. I think maybe, I don't know.
Well, again, Jose Ferrer and Charles Durning. I mean, you're surrounded by really amazing people, and it's by Brooks himself. My God, I'm a huge fan. He's a genius.
No, there's no fart scenes in it, so it's not like Blazing Saddles. So it's true. So maybe could have used a fart scene. I don't know.
Good point. Now I wonder, as you're making these things like Killing Reagan, that was made and National Geographic ran it. And just where TV is now and where film is, and both as an actor and as a director, it seems like obviously now television, because of the limited series, is the place where you can really tell the longer character arcs and the more complex stories. And isn't it interesting? Because I think forever, especially when television was in its half-hour and even hour format, movies were kind of the more superior narrative, it seemed. And again, these are my observations, but I wonder what you think now with not only the limited series, but also the opportunities at Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, and the original programming that they're creating, where everything is. I know Jodie Foster was complaining that, the kind of movies that she made that made her career, you can't make anymore. And my point of view was, well, those things are being made, but really, if anything, go for the 6-hour limited series versus the 2-hour movie. And I just wondered what you thought about all that.
I think you're absolutely right, John. I think that's exactly what's happening. And you get movie stars like Nicole Kidman and those ladies on Big Little Lies.
Yes.
Shailene Woodley and that cast. You get that on TV for 6-8 hours or 10 hours, whatever they did. And it allows the full breadth of the story. Sometimes, you're not going to do Bridge on the River Kwai or Lawrence of Arabia with an intermission. You're not going to make a 3.5-hour movie anymore, because people they don't have time. So they want to binge watch it some weekend and they never get out of bed, or, we want to watch it. People are watching it on their phones.
Sure.
I think now that with the more diversity of media availability, that I think television, or what you want to call it, computers or people with giant screens in their home are watching it. I think that's sort of taken the place. Movies now are these big extravaganza Marvel movies or just big events, Jim Cameron, Avatar, that you want to go see on a giant screen. And you want to see with and some comedies too, I think, because there's some communal experience about being in a room full of people laughing. Mm-hmm. So I think there's that, but there's not a lot of the little independent movie type things aren't getting made, and they're better told on television. You're absolutely right. And some of the series are doing it because you're not locked into, you can do 10 or 12 episodes and you can tell the story over 3 or 4 seasons, and then give the actors half a year off to go and do other things, or experiment or do theater or whatever. So there's a tremendous latitude now that there wasn't before. It was always slumming to do television when I was growing up, and now people bounce back and forth and do it all the time. Look at Dwayne Johnson. I mean, he's doing a series on HBO, and he's doing a movie, Jumanji, and now he's doing the Rampage, and so it doesn't have any effect on him whatsoever.
I understand you were in the latest Jumanji. I'm sorry I haven't seen it yet, speaking of Jumanji.
Oh, yeah, I did a cameo for Jake Kasdan, who's a friend of mine,
cool.
The director. And he asked some friends to do just, a little cameos, and it was a fun thing. And it was a fun movie, and he's a wonderful director.
Yeah, didn't he do the Ryan O'Neal movie? Was it Zero Effect? Wasn't that Jake?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been a fan of his since then. Absolutely. And it's certainly his dad, of course. Larry's a hell of a writer and filmmaker. Yeah, exactly. Not bad. So are there, and I know as we wrap up, I see that on your IMDb page, you've got a couple things coming up as far as movie-wise this year. I see like a political thriller of some sort.
Not sure.
Hold on, I'm going to look at it now as I'm scrolling.
Balloons, which is a little indie movie about a heroin addict, and how it affects a family.
And then
one writer-director. And what was the other one you were talking about?
The Etruscan Smile?
Oh, yes, Etruscan Smile.
Etruscan Smile, excuse me.
Brian Cox. Yeah, I played a doctor in it who had some scenes with Brian, and it was it's a sweet little movie about a father who's alienated from his children and gets back together with his daughter and the grandchild, and so it's a sweet family movie, and it's lovely, and it should be coming out soon.
And then The Good Fight. I see that you did a few episodes of The Good Fight, correct? The CBS All Access show?
Yeah, I get to bed down with Christine Baranski and trade fire with her. And I'm going back this weekend. Actually, next week. I'll be in New York to do another episode.
That's outstanding, man. Very, very cool. And now, are there any, as you said, you've produced films in the past and directed. Are there any projects? Because you seem like you can probably write something if there's an idea burning or something that you want to make yourself.
Oh, no, I'm not Joe Henderson. I'm not a writer. So you don't want me to write.
Okay.
But it's such a skill and such a rarefied, singular skill that I'll leave that to the pros. No, I work with writers, and I have some projects that I'm developing, and it's a lot of fun. I've never, lost my love of that process, and it's something that, but again, it's where do you take it? There's not that many movies being made anymore that, are indie style movies. And, but it's just a question of that, but I love finding material and turning it into a screenplay and then casting it and shooting it and creating a vision that you've imagined and then bringing it to fruition. And it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm really glad you're finding new projects both to direct and act in, and keep it up. I'm really glad, and thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you, John. It was great fun.
Absolutely, man. No, and if you have a new project you ever want to promote, you're always welcome back, and I'd love to talk more about some of the great things you've done in the past. Thank you, Tim Matheson.
Thank you, John.
So much fun having that conversation with Tim Matheson. I thank my buddy Joe Henderson for helping me set it up and the gracious attitude and fun that Tim brought to today's Word Balloon. I hope you enjoyed it. It was all brought to you again by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Again, thank you, League, for your continued support. If you'd like to help the cause, you can go to wordballoon.com, click on the Patreon ad if you'd like to subscribe to Word Balloon, or go to patreon.com/wordballoon. Word Balloon is also brought to you by InStock Trades at InStockTrades.com, where you can get great runs. And Tim revealed he's a DC fan. How about Hawkman by Jeff Johns, trade paperback Volume 2. Jeff did a lot of house cleaning with Hawkman and kind of sorted out all the different iterations of Hawkman's origins that have happened since the Silver Age. Golden Age Hawkman, pretty well taken care of in the 1940s. And things were fine in the 60s, but I think from the 70s and 80s, we got different ideas. Tim Truman in Hawk World, for example, things like that, and certainly in the 90s and in the early 2000s. But then Jeff Johns came around with help from people like James Robinson and Dave Goyer as far as the writing goes, and artists like Rags Morales helping him out on this incredible Hawkman run. This collects Hawkman number 15 through 25 and a great story from JSA 56 through 58. This volume is 344 pages. It's 42% off, $17.39. You can also get Jean Grey Volume 2, Final Fight. Our buddy Dennis Hopeless with Alberto Albuquerque doing the art chores. A great series featuring the young X-Men and at her best, a psych war, the Phoenix Force coming. This one is 42% off, $9.27. You can also get the DC Universe by Brian K. Vaughan. Man, remember when Brian was writing things for DC? Well, this is a great collection. It features Titans 14, Sins of Youth, Wonder Girls number 1, JLA Annual number 4, Green Lantern Circle of Fire issues 1 and 2, Green Lantern the Atom, a great team-up, and a story from Young Justice number 22. 248 pages of Brian K. Vaughan goodness, all collected in one volume. 42% off, $11.59. You can also get Justice League Rebirth. This is Brian Hitch's run. This is Volume 2, and it was a great run. He did the writing chores and the art chores. Also, Fernando Pazarin helping him out on the art chores as well. This is 42% off, $20.29. Some of the great books available now at InStockTrades.com. Don't take my word for it. Do yourself a favor. Go there. You'll find great books at great prices. If you make orders of $50 or more, you'll receive free shipping from our friends at InStockTrades.com. Thanks again for listening to today's Word Balloon. We got more great stuff coming up as April continues and right on to May. Man, just exciting conversations that I've lined up. Cannot wait to share with you in the days and weeks ahead. Until next time, thanks for listening. Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2018.